4 years, Storm ruled the skies, her will shaping lightning and rain. But the storms began to whisper back, louder than before. Something was changing in the air, something she couldn't command. Then came the fireball, a crash from the heavens. From it rose Superman, lost between worlds, humming with solar energy. The storm rushed to him, as if greeting an old god. Aurora felt it, her power no longer hers alone. And when the skies opened again, it wasn't her name the thunder called. The skies over the Serengeti cracked with thunder, but Aurora Monroe hadn't summoned it. High above the plains, Storm hovered in silence, her white eyes scanning the swirling cloud front that had built itself without her touch. Lightning forked violently in the distance, thunder boomed without command. Her brow furrowed. The winds didn't listen to her the way they used to. They resisted, twisted, murmured in strange pulses. This wasn't a failure of control. It was interference. 4 years, Storm had been nature's voice, bending sky and rain and wind to her will, not as a master, but as a partner. Now, something was speaking back through the weather, and it wasn't Earth. She closed her eyes, inhaling the ozone-rich air, trying to realign with the storm's rhythm. For a moment, calm returned. Then, a flash, not of lightning, but of memory. A red sun, a dying world, a man falling through the stars. Her eyes snapped open. She descended to a nearby ridge, where Beast and Jean Grey waited by a portable monitoring station. Their instruments had picked up anomalies in the stratosphere, wild pressure shifts, magnetic flares, and echoes of non-terrestrial radiation. Jean placed a hand on Aurora's shoulder. "Are you losing control?" "No," Storm replied quietly. "The storm isn't mine anymore. I think it's choosing." As if to answer, the sky cracked open. A blinding light tore across the clouds like a blade, followed by a roar that shook the earth. Someone, plummeted from the heavens in a streak of fire. A shockwave rippled through the land, flattening trees and scattering birds in every direction. The impact site was less than a mile away. Storm was already airborne. She reached the crater first. Smoke and soil hissed upward, and in the center, surrounded by scorched earth and molten rock, lay a figure, a man, burned but breathing, wearing the torn remains of a red and blue suit. She stepped forward cautiously. The air around him hummed, the wind circling him in a spiral, not as if threatening him, but protecting him. And then, as if pulled by instinct, a bolt of lightning struck from above, not at Storm, but into the man. He didn't burn. He breathed deeper. Aurora stared down at the stranger, her heart racing, her connection to the sky trembling. The storm had chosen. And it had not chosen her. The crater hissed with residual heat, yet the man at its center remained untouched by flame. Steam curled off the molten stones around him, bending toward his body like metal drawn to a magnet. The winds whipped in a spiral, circling him in a reverent dance. Storm felt it. The atmosphere wasn't resisting him, it was responding. Jean Grey and Beast arrived moments later, sliding down the fractured edge of the impact site. Beast's scanners went wild, solar radiation, gravitational distortion, and something Jean whispered as alien thought residue. Storm knelt beside the fallen stranger, her cape fluttering in the rising wind. His chest rose shallowly, his pulse was weak but steady. She brushed a hand near his temple, not touching, the heat was intense. Then his eyes shot open. They glowed faintly, not with fire, but with sunlight. He gasped for air, his hand gripping the earth with superhuman tension, cracking the rock beneath his fingers. Instinctively, Storm summoned a cooling breeze, but the wind deflected, flowing around him instead of obeying her. Jean stepped forward, voice steady but wary. "Can you understand us?" The stranger's gaze was distant, unfocused. His voice came out rough, strained, as if dragged through galaxies. "Where am I?" His accent was strange. His tone carried the weight of someone who had flown through dying stars. Storm met his eyes. "You fell from the sky. Who are you?" He swallowed hard, struggling to remember. Images flickered in his vision, a shattered portal, a roaring vortex, a burning tower of light. A world breaking. I am Kal-El, he whispered. My people called me a protector. Jean and Storm exchanged a quick glance. Beast silently mouthed the word, alien. Before Storm could ask more, the sky above them thundered again. A ring of clouds swirled unnaturally, not from Storm's influence, but in reaction to Kal-El's awakening. Wind currents bent toward him, lightning flickered in greeting. Storm took a slow breath. Her powers weren't malfunctioning. They were gravitating to him. Kal-El pushed himself to his knees, legs trembling. His strength was returning sporadically, like a broken circuit reconnecting piece by piece. When he reached for the sunlight peeking through the clouds, the weather answered, the light brightened, the winds calmed. He looked at Storm with confusion and guilt. I didn't mean to take anything. Her jaw tightened. The storm listens to me. It has always listened to me. Until you came. The wind surged suddenly, lifting dust and debris around them, forming a swirling halo around Kal-El. He wasn't doing it. The storm was. And in that moment, Storm understood something terrifying. The sky had found a new favorite. You. The sun rose over Wakanda, but the skies above the palace glimmered with instability, like the atmosphere was humming with ancient memory. Storm stood with Shuri in the vibranium archives, surrounded by scrolls, holograms, and sealed relics that predated even Bast's temples. The winds follow him, Ororo said, her voice low. Not like a servant follows a king. More like a child following its first parent. Shuri glanced up from a pulsating glyph etched into a relic disk. Or like a storm recognizing something older than itself. That was the fear neither of them had dared to speak aloud. On the table lay a forgotten Wakandan prophecy, uncovered after Kal-El's arrival. It spoke of the skyborn walkers, celestial beings from beyond the stars who came before the first rain, before the first thunder. The legends were vague, symbolic. But one line struck hard. When the heavens burn and the storm splits in two, the sky shall choose again. Storm paced the room, the air rippling subtly with each step. Her connection to the atmosphere was still there, but muted, like her power now had to ask permission. Meanwhile, across the compound, Kal-El stood in a courtyard, shirtless under the sun, absorbing light. The weather shimmered around him, not obeying, not controlled, but synchronized. Trees bent gently in his direction. Clouds shifted just enough to warm his skin. It was no longer about force. It was about presence. Beast, observing nearby, whispered to Jean. He's not stealing her power. He's sharing space with it. And the storm likes him better. But this balance was short-lived. Far beyond the shielded mountains, something awoke. Beneath the deepest layers of the Congo Basin, in a place untouched by light for millennia, the earth cracked open. A pulse echoed across the continent, felt by every weather satellite, every telepath, and especially by Storm and Kal-El. They both dropped to their knees at the same moment, visions piercing their minds. A voice, deep, layered, old as thunder, filled their thoughts. You fight for the skies, but I am the storm's first breath. The name came unbidden. Atumokai, the ancient sky entity long sealed by mutant ancestors, locked away before recorded history. A being who once enslaved the weather itself. Now, awakened by the imbalance between Storm and Superman, it was returning. Storm gasped, eyes wide. It's coming for both of us. And the skies roared in agreement. The storm gathered over the African continent, visible from orbit, a spiraling mass of thunderheads and lightning veins stretching from Wakanda to the sea. But this was no natural event. It pulsed with awareness. It had a voice. Atumokai had risen. A towering figure of raw elemental force, shaped from clouds, wind, and stormlight. Atumokai emerged above the great rift, lightning forming its bones, eyes like twin suns hidden in cloud. Its voice rumbled across the planet in every language. The skies do not serve the weak. They bow to the firstborn. Storm and Kal-El stood at the edge of a cliff near Mount Kilimanjaro, where the winds twisted violently around them. The balance had cracked. Now, The storm demanded a single master. "He's trying to divide us," Storm said, eyes glowing white. "Or test us," Kal-El replied, fists clenched, cape flickering in the electric wind. Without warning, Untouchable unleashed a wave of pressure that shattered the clouds and sent the earth into tremors. Kal-El took flight. Storm rose on a cyclone. They soared into the maelstrom, together, at first. But the entity whispered through the wind, turning instinct against instinct. "He is not of this world," the storm whispered into Aurora's mind. "He is a thief." "She doubts you," it echoed to Kal-El. "She fears what you are becoming." The storm itself began to pit them against each other. Above the clouds, they clashed, lightning crackling between them, solar flares clashing with elemental winds. The skies became their battlefield. Aurora hurled sharpened spears of ice rain. Kal-El deflected with heat vision that split the horizon. He spun through a vortex, sending shockwaves that destabilized her flight. She answered with a hurricane that bent the air into a cage. For every blow, the storm cheered. Yet something within them resisted the violence. Between strikes, their eyes met, and saw doubt, pain, and respect. Neither truly wanted this. Untouchable grew stronger with every clash. Its form expanded, feeding on chaos, drawing power from their conflict. The more they fought, the more it fed. Then Storm remembered the prophecy, when the storm splits in two. She stopped mid-flight, letting Kal-El strike. But instead of blocking it, she absorbed it, redirecting the energy upward, straight into Untouchable's chest. "We're not enemies," she shouted through the winds. "We are the storm, together." Kal-El understood. He surged beside her, his solar aura flaring to full strength. They circled Untouchable in unison, creating a vortex of united force. For the first time, the entity faltered. The storm had chosen both. Untouchable howled, a sound made of hurricane winds and centuries of hunger. The entity thrashed in the sky, its colossal form flickering between cloud and lightning, trying to rip itself free from the cyclone now binding it. But for the first time in ages, the storm refused to obey. Storm and Kal-El soared side by side, their powers no longer colliding, but flowing in perfect harmony. She was the soul of the skies. He was its fire. The winds no longer screamed in chaos, but danced in rhythm. "We aren't your vessels," Storm declared, voice amplified by the thunder itself. "And we are not your enemies," Kal-El added, his cape flaring in golden light. "We are your balance." They flew in a tight arc around Untouchable, generating a vortex of weatherlight, solar flares entwined with hurricane force, drawing from both Krypton's energy and Earth's elemental heart. The storm creature began to unravel, its form dispersing into clouds and sparks. "You were born before the sky was named," Storm whispered, reaching out a hand. "Then it's time to teach you its name again." Together, they launched a final surge, her lightning channeled through his solar core, focused into a beam of pure, united force. It struck Untouchable through the chest, igniting its body in a column of white-blue energy. The sky went silent. And then, clear. Sunlight pierced through the last of the dark clouds. Birds returned. The wind sighed, gentle and quiet, as if the earth itself exhaled relief. Where Untouchable had hovered, there was now only mist, slowly dissipating into blue sky. On the ground, the world watched. From Wakanda to New York, across satellite feeds and mutant channels, Storm and Superman descended, not as conquerors, but as guardians who had learned not to command, but to listen. Later, in a Wakandan meadow, Aurora and Kal-El stood beneath open sky. "It's not gone," she said softly. "Untouchable. It's sleeping now. In the sky, in the storm. Then we'll watch over it," Kal replied. "Together." She looked at him, the alien who arrived uninvited, but stayed with purpose. "You came from a dying sun, but the earth still has skies to protect." He smiled. "I'm not its god, just its guest." As they turned to walk, thunder rolled, soft, steady, and shared. Not storms, not Supermen's, but a new rhythm. A joined sky. and the storm. It answered to them both.